वैसे, this is not me. I don't look this old, this wise. Ask my children. They say, Mama, you don't know anything. But on a more serious note, this is the new me. A confused me, a Rip Van Winkle me. They colored my hair all these shades of grey. I told them, please, I have this very important talk to give, so can we do it after? Oh, fine, take it off my hair. I'll wear a cap, a hat, a headgear. But they said, no, madam, that is not the plan for you. What was the plan? To bleach, 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 drain out all the color out of my hair so that I'm ready to play this very exciting salt and pepper character who also is supposed to be skinny. From which angle? No, na? That's my opening story. What's yours? How are you today? Good? Better than yesterday? Recovering? Hot? Cold? Hungry? Looking for a girlfriend? You need a drink? Looking for a life? I hear you. You are not only stories, but entire epics with threads and layers that form an intricate tapestry. You, my friends, are built on rock and roll, on folklore, fables, legends, stories. And it all begins when you're in your mama's womb. Ask Freud. So each one of you has a little bit of Abhimanyu in you. And as you grow, a little bit of the little match girl, Rumpelstiltskin, Akbar Birbal, Harry Potter, all kind of distilled into your psyche. I'm going to wind all the way back to my bachpan, many years. Our favorite time of day was bedtime. We'd scream, Mama, ready! What was ready? We had washed our faces, brushed our teeth, and we were all set to be tucked into bed with a kahani. The story was comforter and quilt, and it saw us to the next day. The stories were about escape and adventure, about a girl who ran away from home, about a boy who wouldn't wash behind his ears, so potato trees grew there, about the wind that blows and changes your fortunes. Sometimes it was a ballad, Tom Dooley, or in Dublin's fair city, where girls are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone as she wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, singing cockerels and mussels, alive, alive, oh. We'd go to sleep with the sound of words in our ears. Childhood we left behind, but the stories stayed. Stories always stay. They are what make us. They are what bind us together as one cohesive whole. Man landing on the moon, all of you know that story. Ever wondered, did it really happen? Or was that footage shot in a studio in Hollywood? COVID. How many of you, with a show of hands, had COVID? Okay. How many of you know somebody who had COVID? How many of you lost someone to COVID? Oh, that's terrible. Sorry. Ever wondered, was that a natural bug? Or was it born out of a lab in Wuhan? Where do stories start and where does reality kick in? Huh? Are kuch galat bola? Oh, I think maybe today a letter is better than a slap. Remind me to go to this before I wind up. Stories are not part of culture. Stories are culture. We are the stories we tell, isn't it? I mean, where do you find them? I would say everywhere. Look around you, look within you. Billboards, hoardings, advertisements, OTT platforms, social media, LinkedIn. People are people's stories. Where I come from, the theatre. We're in the business of creating stories. A different story every night. And as we play to different audiences, the texture and the nuance of the stories changes. I used to spend hours at Grand Central Station just watching the world go by. The girl pacing up and down, glancing at her watch, and then breaking down because she realizes she's been stood up. The boy flying behind his granddaddy just to keep pace. The reluctant to go home students just lingering and lounging and eating bagels. The exhausted shoppers, each one of them a fascinating story with a past and a future of powerful possibilities. Do you ever do that? Hang out at a mall or in a park and just check people out? People watching very different to chick watching, I must qualify. And you see something like lipstick on a collar, a frayed t-shirt, a torn ganji, broken chappal, and you join the dots and create narratives. What do? It's just part of being human, creating stories. Started all the way back in the caveman times. Didn't they draw and depict on the caves? And then it moves to oral storytelling traditions. How I'm dying to do that with you guys. Build a fire and just sit around and storytell. Our epics are born. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Odyssey, the Iliad. And then they're recorded first with a quill, a pen, then a typewriter, and a computer. And today, you, modern day Tulsidases, you guys create digital stories. I'm sure you can teach me a thing or two. What do stories do? Save lives. You all know Scheherazade from the Arabian Nights. She would tell a different story every night. And she would build up the suspense, build up the suspense, build up the suspense, right to the cliffhanger. And then she would tell the cruel Sultan, I'm tired. To be continued. The same formula used by all our soap operas today. But really, on a real ground, stories are like our coping mechanism. When you have to deal with a lot of grief or loss or trauma, you build narratives. She's with him. She's a star. God had plans for her. And it just allows us to live another day. Stories are also our memories now. They are repositories, museums for our past. I remember Nani. So many times she told us about how they left in the dead of the night. There were fires blazing all around, and they crossed the border. They came into these huge refugee camps where from a big patila, khichdi was being doled out. And they started life from scratch. Or Dada, he decided to boycott the British and he ran away and became a bus driver. What would we be without our histories? Just shadow people. Stories are also a grim reminder for where not to go. The world is kind of on the brink of a possible Third World War. And what happened after Little Boy and Fat Man can never ever happen again. I'm going to read you a tiny little grab from the New Yorker, just to bring it alive for us today in August 1946. A year after the bombing of Hiroshima, Hatsuyu Nakamura was weak and destitute. Her husband, a tailor, had been taken into the army and had been killed in Singapore on the day of that city's capture, February 15th, 1942. She lost her mother, her brother, and a sister to the atomic bombs. Her son and 2 daughters, 10, 8, and 5 years old, were buried in rubble when the blast of the bomb flung her house down. In a frenzy, she dug them out alive. A month after the bombing, she came down with radiation sickness. She lost most of her hair and lay in bed for weeks with a high fever in the house of her sister-in-law in a suburb in Kabe, all the while worrying about how to support her children. These stories that remind us not to go anywhere close to a nuclear holocaust. Stories are inspirational, sometimes motivational. You all know barely 2 weeks ago about the boy, like Forrest Gump, running from Noida to Baroda, 10 kilometers, and that story goes viral. So yesterday's bestseller is today's viral ho gaya, isn't it? And he has a turnaround in fortunes. Of course, stories hold up the world in terms of governments, up or down, depending on the narrative that's being churned. They're huge machineries, like little Oompa Loompas. They're churning out these stories and narratives. The economy, you have brands, so your 20-second, 30-second, 40-second little advertisements. Society, hum do, hamare do, that whole narrative, ghar basao. But I shouldn't be cynical. And of course, in education, I mean, I can go on saying Stanislavski, Grotowski to my drama students, and they're going to be like, but if I just story tell it, it's 22 times easier to retain a story than plain fact. So I think we've really established that stories are not going anywhere anytime soon. So how do we become powerful storytellers? How do you power tell a story? Well, you've got to want to tell it. If your life depended on spinning a yarn, boy, you would spin it with heart and with conviction. So all your nakras, bahanas that, it wasn't me, it broke. I didn't cheat on you, he did it. Or poor connectivity, no Wi-Fi, couldn't get onto the Zoom meet. Those stories are built with a lot of conviction. We buy them. Structure it. A beginning, a middle, and an end, and the story has more weight. Practice. Practice is imperative. Very few of us can actually come in front of an audience and wing it. Even Shah Rukh Khan probably puts in his hours before he goes for a Filmfare award. There is the story going around for a long time about the man who was looking for Carnegie Hall. So he goes to this, Carnegie Hall is where the Mecca for us, where we all want to perform. He goes to the old man and says, which is the way to Carnegie Hall? And the old man looks at him and says, son, the way to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, and more practice. So there's no getting out of that one. I remember the time that I had to sing at an inter-school event, and I learned the song the night before the event. Buonasera, signorita, buonasera. Fair enough. Go there, the show is on, guitar is to the left, my audience in front of me, and nada. Not the birth, buonasera in my head, and my ears are on fire and my knees are weak, and I turn and I just walk off. And I would not have been in that hot soup had I just lived with that material. Eyes. The eyes are crucial for storytelling unless you're Homer. Because the eyes are the windows to your soul. Not only eyes, hands, generous use of gesture. And why hands? Actually, your entire body is your instrument, so toes up. There's this play, Beckett, one of my favorites, that opens with the lead actor standing with his back to the audience, and even the back speaks. Try it on your girlfriend or boyfriend. Let's see if it works. Yeah. Of course, interactive. A story can only be complete if I speak it and you are part of my process. Should we try something? Are you game, guys? Yeah, okay. So, there once was a farmer who took a young miss to the back of the barn where he gave her a lecture on horses and chickens and eggs, and told her that she had such beautiful manners for a girl of her charm, a girl who he wanted to take in his washing and wiping, and then if they did. So that's wonderful. Give yourselves a clap. And I know I'm going out of light, but that's for you, and that's for you, and that, ouch, is for you. It went under the chair. Wonderful. What else? The most important part, you in the story. The way you tell Cinderella is going to be so different to the way you tell Cinderella or the way you tell it. Would you use music? Music goes straight to the heart. So you speak to the head and you speak to the heart. La 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 la. La 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 la. And kuch kuch hota hai. Would you use color? Red speaks of danger. Red speaks of passion. Red speaks of love. Red speaks of a country we won't mention today. Green is jealousy. Green is environment. Would you use aroma? Agarbatti, petrol, coffee. Such different associations, isn't it? I know a director who decided to put coffee in the audience. And he wanted the audience to have this all-immersive experience of the rich wafting coffee and the play. What else in storytelling? Of course, if you throw in anecdotes, because Steve Jobs was excellent at it, right? He would put in so many stories, not just gyan, and keep it short. So all our and our favorite crutch words like. So maybe we can just throw them out and really have the story terse and taut and just like we like it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the letter with you. Should I be doing that? Okay. Let's see what that has. Dear Salone, we know that you're talking about stories. Your stories are also the ones you don't tell, the unspoken stories that lie within you, the stories that haunt you, the stories you fear. Are you scared to tell them? For will you speak of violence? Will you speak of a director, a bully on set, who keeps his sheer black glares on while he consumes you, and you shy and shrivel in your nakedness? Will you speak of the hand that groped you? Will you speak? What do you tell? What do you leave out? Your story, your choice. Thank you. You've been such a wonderful audience.